So, Bios Winters, a very good afternoon to you. We're going to cross live to the premises. Has just been held in the last 24 hours to get a live update from the ship and from over there.
This is Zemi Media, broadcasting all around the world, on the spot, on the dot.
Mr. Glover, are these the stairs that... Mr. Glover, are these the stairs that the ZANU-PF leader Emerson Mnangagwa was descending when he was talking with his journalist Ruben Barwe and convincing himself that there was no discussion at all about the Zimbabwe elections? Can you please explain?
Look, I'm actually here at this venue where such summit took place. If you look at these stairs, that's where these leadership presidents, state presidents were climbing up to the venue, going inside there. So I'm so shocked and surprised that Mr. Mnangagwa and his other counterparts are playing this whole thing down. But the fact of the matter is that, one, the adoption of the SADC report on Zimbabwean elections was noted, it was taken, which simply means that when they say they are. So the point I'm trying to make is that we got two issues here. There's an issue of noting the report, right, which is very clear. But the second issue, of course, is about the way forward. Everyone is speculating. We don't know if the way forward is that what exactly has transpired. We're trying to get through some people who are close to the officials of government, the government officials who are very close to the president, with the chairperson of SADC summit here. So we are going to get the truth as time goes on, but people must understand that there is a lot of diplomatic efforts being played around this issue. The fact remains that this SADC report found its way into the SADC summit and it was noted. And that noting, in our understanding and the information that we have, is that it means it was agreed that elections were not free and fair and credible. And it also means that the ZEC announcement, election announcement results was nullified. It was nullified because everything came through the flawed process. The presidency also, by extension, is nullified. But who has the boldness to say that in the public? We don't know. But I want also to note that yes, the way forward is there. The way forward is just that we are not sure how concrete the way forward is. But SADC is not happy, was not happy, and these irregularities were beyond measure, were not normal irregularities that we always find or always see in other elections reports in other countries. These were above or beyond the standard guidelines and the elections constitutional, to violate the constitution of Zimbabwe, to violate even our own electoral act led by our Chigumba there. So the fact of the matter is that things did not go well for Mr. Emmerson Mnangagwa. He mustn't lie to the people. It's not. The other fact I want to make it very clear is that I'm not the official spokesperson. I'm not the spokesperson of the Triple C here. The Triple C is the special national spokesperson. Myself here, I'm just here to reflect my own personal.
President Hichilema also made comments on political situations in Zimbabwe and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Zimbabwe elections. My answer, very simple answer to that, yes, that item is on the agenda. It was on the agenda for the Monday summit. We didn't conclude, we didn't reach that item. This Saturday, that item is going to be discussed in Angola.
Comrade President, how did it go?
Excellent. With very successful SADC summit. Yes.
Any of those pretenders who might have wanted to smuggle issues over here, did they get?
No, these things happen in society. Not everybody is a priest. So you find these things happening, but we are so alert that we are going to deal with things that are relevant to the summit which was called. This is extraordinary, which means there was a particular subject we had to discuss.
Only DRC issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Your Excellency. All right.
Mr. Glover, are these the stairs that the ZANU-PF leader Emmerson Mnangagwa was descending when he was talking with his journalist Ruben Barwe and convincing himself that there was no discussion at all about the Zimbabwe elections? Can you please explain?
Look, I'm actually here at this venue where such summit took place. If you look at these days, that's where these leadership presidents, state presidents were climbing up to the venue, going inside there. So I'm so shocked and surprised that Mr. Mnangagwa and his other counterparts are playing this whole thing down. But the fact of the matter is that, one, the adoption of the SADC report on Zimbabwean elections was noted, it was taken, which simply means that when they say they are noting, it's a diplomatic term that means that they have endorsed that report. And that report was so damning, that report made it very clear that elections were flawed, processes were flawed, elections were not free, fair, and credible. And number two, it also states that these elections should be nullified in clear terms. It should be nullified. So we are here to report and to witness the historic agreement or historic resolution by the SADC summit. You know, there are commentators along the side here who are making it very clear that next the Emmerson Mnangagwa, they liken him to the former president of Angola, Mr. Dos Santos. You know, to say he was able to amass riches for himself through ill-gotten riches, and just like him. And this is what Mr. Lawrence, the current president of Angola, is trying to undo here in Angola. So yes, some of the things that are being said are not very specific. But of course, I want to also quickly add that we do not know exactly what is the way forward. There is only speculation that South Africa will handle the negotiation, the dialogue, but we are not very sure. But what we are sure of is that report was clearly adopted. So if it was adopted, it was noted, it means that they agree with the contents of that report, which was genuinely, which made it very clear that elections were not free and fair. So the point I'm trying to make is that we got two issues here. There's an issue of noting the report, right, which is very clear. But the second issue, of course, is about the way forward. Everyone is speculating. We don't know if the way forward is that what exactly has transpired. We're trying to get through some people who are close to the officials of government, the government officials who are very close to the president, with the chairperson of SADC summit here. So we are going to get the truth as time goes on, but people must understand that there is a lot of diplomatic efforts being played around this issue. The fact remains that this SADC report found its way into the SADC summit and it was noted. And that noting, in our understanding and the information that we have, is that it means it was agreed that elections were not free and fair and credible. And it also means that the ZEC announcement, election announcement results was nullified. It was nullified because everything came through the flawed process. The presidency also, by extension, is nullified. But who has the boldness to say that in the public? We don't know. But I want also to note that yes, the way forward is there. The way forward is just that we are not sure how concrete the way forward is. But SADC is not happy, was not happy, and these irregularities were beyond measure, were not normal irregularities that we always find or always see in other elections reports in other countries. These were above or beyond the standard guidelines and the elections constitutional, to violate the constitution of Zimbabwe, to violate even our own electoral act led by our Chigumba there. So the fact of the matter is that things did not go well for Mr. Emerson Mnangagwa. He mustn't lie to the people. It's not true.
President Hichilema also made comments on political situations in Zimbabwe and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Zimbabwe elections. My answer, very simple answer to that, yes, that item is on the agenda. It was on the agenda for the Monday summit. We didn't conclude, we didn't reach that item. This Saturday, that item is going to be discussed in Angola.
Comrade President, how did it go?
Excellent. Excellent. With very successful SADC summit. Yes.
Any of those pretenders who might have wanted to smuggle issues over here, did they get?
No, these things happen in society. Not everybody is a priest. So you find these things happening, but we are so alert that we had only to deal with things that are relevant to the summit, which was called. This is extraordinary, which means there was a particular subject we had to discuss.
Only DRC issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Your Excellency. All right.
Mr. Glover, are these the stairs that the ZANU-PF leader Emerson Mnangagwa was descending? Mr. Ndlovu, are these the stairs that the ZANU-PF leader Emerson Mnangagwa was descending when he was talking with his journalist Ruben Barwe and convincing himself that there was no discussion at all about the Zimbabwe elections? Can you please explain?
Look, I'm actually here at this venue where such summit took place. If you look at these stairs, that's where these leadership presidents, state presidents were climbing up to the venue, going inside there. So I'm so shocked and surprised that Mr. Mnangagwa and his other counterparts are playing this whole thing down. But the fact of the matter is that, one, the adoption of the SADC report on Zimbabwean elections was noted. It was taken, which simply means that when they say they are noting, it's a diplomatic term that means that they have endorsed that report. And that report was so damning, that report made it very clear that elections were flawed, processes were flawed, elections were not free, fair, and credible. And number two, it also states that these elections should be nullified in clear terms. It should be nullified. So we are here to report and to witness the historic agreement or historic resolution by the SADC summit. You know, there are commentators along the side here who are making it very clear that next the Emerson Mnangagwa, they liken him to the former president of Angola, Mr. Dos Santos. You know, to say he was able to amass riches for himself through ill-gotten riches, and just like him. And this is what Mr. Lawrence, the current president of Angola, is trying to undo here in Angola. So yes, some of the things that are being said are not very specific. But of course, I want to also quickly add that we do not know exactly what is the way forward. There is only speculation that South Africa will handle the negotiation, the dialogue, but we are not very sure. But what we are sure of is that that report was clearly adopted. So if it was adopted, it was noted, it means that they agree with the contents of that report, which was damn. So the point I'm trying to make is that we got two issues here. There's an issue of noting the report, right? Which is very clear. But the second issue, of course, is about the way forward. Everyone is speculating. We don't know if the way forward is that what exactly has transpired. We're trying to get through some people who are close to the officials of government, the government officials who are very close to the president, with the chairperson of SADC summit here. So we are going to get the truth as time goes on, but people must understand that there is a lot of diplomatic efforts being played around this issue. You know, the fact remains that this SADC report found its way into the SADC summit, and it was noted. And that noting, in our understanding and the information that we have, is that it means it was agreed that elections were not free and fair and credible. And it also means that the ZEC announcement, election announcement results was nullified. It was nullified because everything came through the flawed process. The presidency also, by extension, is nullified. But who has the boldness to say that in the public? We don't know. But I want also to note that, yes, the way forward is there. The way forward is just that we are not sure how concrete the way forward is. But SADC is not happy, was not happy, and these irregularities were beyond measure, were not normal irregularities that we always find or always see in other elections reports in other countries. These were above or beyond the standard guidelines and the elections constitutional, to violate the constitution of Zimbabwe, to violate even our own electoral act led by our Chigumba there. So the fact of the matter is that things did not go well for Mr. Emmerson Mnangagwa. He mustn't lie to the people. It's not true.
President Hichilema also made comments on political situations in Zimbabwe and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Zimbabwe elections. My answer, very simple answer to that, yes, that item is on the agenda. It was on the agenda for the Monday summit. We didn't conclude, we didn't reach that item. This Saturday, that item is going to be discussed in Angola.
Comrade President, how did it go?
Excellent. Excellent. With very successful SADC summit. Yes.
Any of those pretenders who might have wanted to smuggle issues over here, did they get?
No, these things happen in society. Not everybody is a priest. So you find these things happening, but we are so alert that we had only to deal with things that are relevant to the summit which was called. This is extraordinary, which means there was a particular subject we had to discuss.
Only DRC issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Your Excellency. All right.
Mr. Glover, are these the stairs that the ZANU-PF leader Emmerson Mnangagwa was descending when he was talking with his journalist Ruben Barwe and convincing himself that there was no discussion at all about the Zimbabwe elections? Can you please explain?
Look, I'm actually here at this venue where such summit took place. If you look at these stairs, that's where these leadership presidents, state presidents were climbing up to the venue, going inside there. So I'm so shocked and surprised that Mr. Mnangagwa and his other counterparts are playing this whole thing down. But the fact of the matter is that, one, the adoption of the SADC report on Zimbabwean elections was noted, it was taken, which simply means that when they say they are noting, it's a diplomatic term that means that they have endorsed that report. And that report was so damning, that report made it very clear that elections were flawed, processes were flawed, elections were not free, fair, and credible. And number two, it also states that these elections should be nullified in clear terms. It should be nullified. So we are here to report and to witness the historic agreement or historic resolution by the SADC summit. You know, there are commentators along the side here who are making it very clear that next the Emmerson Mnangagwa, they liken him to the former president of Angola, Mr. Dos Santos. You know, to say he was able to amass riches for himself through ill-gotten riches, and just like him. And this is what Mr. Lawrence, the current president of Angola, is trying to undo here in Angola. So yes, some of the things that are being said are not very specific. But of course, I want to also quickly add that we do not know exactly what is the way forward. There is only speculation that South Africa will handle the negotiation, the dialogue, but we are not very sure. But what we are sure of is that that report was clearly adopted So if it was adopted, it was noted, it means that they agree with the contents of that report, which was genuinely, which made it very clear that elections were not free and fair.
Yes, obviously, says good afternoon to you. This is 2:08 in the United Kingdom. I don't know what time it is where you are. Do let us know what time it is there. Just type in the comment box right there. We're connecting with Mr. Trust Ndlovu, who is on the ground in Luanda, right at the premises, the SADC premises, where he has just confirmed officially there, confirmed the current position that SADC has adopted, and which is the condemnation of Mr. Emmerson Mnangagwa's presidency. And we've dropped a link, also a video here that people might want to comment and might also want to ask questions. We might want to ask Mr. Ndlovu questions. Right, and I think I've got a few guests behind me here. I've got Dr. Martin Nyashanu. I've got Mama Africa in the back view here. Mama Africa, you want to enable your video because you're not going to be able to speak unless your video is enabled. So you need to enable it in your device for you able to speak. Right. Good afternoon to you. Dr. Mashan, how are you, sir?
I'm all right. How are you, Simba? Nice to see you.
I'm good. Oh, I'm well. Thank you very much, sir. I don't know. Are you in Luanda or you are in Europe?
No. I'm in Europe. I'm in Birmingham, to be precise.
Right. So you didn't follow Mr. Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa.
No, Tati Chitera on the cyber, and I think it's something very interesting that is developing.
Yes, we have Mr. Trust Ndlovu here, one of the Zimbabweans who traveled thousands of kilometers to get to the summit. And he told me he's remaining there because
my result is SADC.
Because I don't want to
Interesting. But you know, Simba, it's quite very interesting, and people should actually read what is happening now with a lot of things that people has been worried about. One of the things that people need to be aware of is that SADC won't be playing hard politics, but behind the scene, we know that things are taking place. ZANU-PF is still grappling with the legitimacy issue, and the legitimacy issue is the one that has stopped them from doing any business across the world. And without that, and this is precisely why you have seen them trying to destroy the CCC, because they know that their case is not about Chabangu. Chabangu is a side show, that one. Their case with the CCC is that they failed to usher a credible election. And that is all what SADC, EU, European Union, you can talk of the United Nations. That is all what they are grappled with. All these things that they are doing is a side show. Destroying CCC would never exonerate them from a shambolic election that they carried out in 2023. And using Job Sikala as a bait will never detract the people. The issue is Job Sikala is in prison unlawfully, and he should be discharged, and that has nothing to do with politics. What Chabangu was talking about was actually selling himself as a ZANU-PF merchant of death. That's all what he did to those who were listening. And he tried to play a side show that will never detract them or exonerate them from a poor shambolic election that they've actually presided on the 23rd of August. And you could actually read, we know Mr. Mnangagwa, when he's coming from any summit, anything that has to do with rubbing shoulders of international leaders, he will then have an address of more than 5 minutes. That was the shortest address of Mr. Mnangagwa ever to their own journalist, Ruben Barwe. And that speaks volume of an explosive inside meeting which the media was not privy to. And we can now reliably know that there is a case with SADC, and Zimbabwe has got to put the things right. And there is a political impasse, and that political impasse needs to be discussed with the opposition, and that will be the only way out. As of now, ZANU-PF has been working CCC since it said it won the election because they have no legitimacy. You don't fight for your legitimacy, you earn legitimacy following an election.
Dr. Shan, quickly, while we're on that, I have just remembered something. You are far much older than me, and I do remember you played quite a key role in during the Changirai era. Tell me something. Yesterday, I clashed with SADC staff because of the blackout. When they shut journalists, they shut all live streaming from the meeting. So practically, there was no way the taxpayers of these various African countries, 400 million citizens of the SADC countries, could not watch live their employees, their civil servants, having a meeting, a private meeting. Was that normal? Is that normal? Is that how? I remember the SADC meetings. That give us an insight, please. And I'm hoping that your memory can rewind. Well, 2007, 2008, during the time when President Mnangagwa'S, President Ian Khama as well, were strong voices inside SADC for the oppressed people of Zimbabwe. So I need to understand, was it normal or the SADC staff rigged the summit?
I will say this, Simba. I was also listening to one of your shows that you had last night, and there was a lady who was actually talking some very interesting points. She talked of the corporate world. The corporate world can be superimposed on the political world as well. When you will know that inside there was explosive meetings that were taking place, but what might happen is that ZANU-PF, not ZANU-PF, but I would say what was happening was that SADC was trying to put up a very good corporate image. They didn't want to wash their dirty linen in public, but I would tell you that there would be some very tough questions behind there. And that happens even in Europe, where the European Union, sometimes it can have some meetings which are not privy to journalists. All they would do, they would come out and talk to the journalists, which I think they need to improve on that particular aspect. Once they have finished such a closed door meeting, they need now to make the narrative known to all the people through the media, and this was not actually happening. So taking that forward, what you have actually said, I think it was a matter of trying to manage the show. If you remember very well, Nevas Mumba's report actually threw some mudslinging after ZANU-PF learned that they had actually been indicted in the report because of how they conducted those elections, and they wouldn't want people to be discussing that way. So they wanted to put a corporate face to it, but we know that there was some explosive things that were behind, and you could actually tell by faces of those who are coming out of it. You can tell again with the media, the media landscape, and it's actually something that is very, very embarrassing, Simba, for the daily Sunday news in Zimbabwe. The Sunday Mail actually took what Mr. Mnangagwa had told them, and that is in the public domain, that Zimbabwe was never discussed. Little did they know that there will be a communique. And what it tells the people of Zimbabwe and those who are interested in the political landscape of Zimbabwe is that our president can lie. He is a big liar. and he doesn't tell us the truth. If he fails to tell us the truth,
cybercrime.
No. I don't have any cybercrime. This is academic, and this is very true. What he said last night, he said that Zimbabwe was not on the agenda. Didn't he say that? But it was there. What would you say that? That's pure lies. And if that is cybercrime, then we should not actually live in fear of the police and of Zimbabwe, like we were fearing Ian Douglas Smith. I'm now beginning to not know the difference between the colonial government and the one that is purporting to have freed us from those colonialists, because what seems to happen is that we are now having a new colonizers who are like us, and who are even going into the footsteps of old colonizers and copy all their laws that they've passed. It's actually very, very, very worrying that we are having people who are actually operating using the systems of colonialism.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. Next question here. You said that you don't believe Mnangagwa's statements at the end there. Are you telling me that everything that Mnangagwa was saying to Ruben Barrett there was not true? I mean, I tried to list them one by one, and I think if you see in the video, I listed about 14, and I told us to put them out to 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if they were speaking with each other, and I noticed 14 statements uttered by both journalist and his president, and the statements with the effect. Number 1 was Comrade President. So this is outside. This is international. Okay, and a journalist is calling his own country, nation, someone who's supposed to be the president of a country, right, is being called comrade. Yeah. So yeah, but I just noted that, and it was repeated twice. Okay, and then he says, how did it go? Yeah, and such a question, and then later on Mnangagwa then replies and he says, excellent, twice again. And then says excellent twice. Okay, and then Ruben Barrett says, look, did these people, I'm trying to remember, get the exact words there. He said that
were there some people who were trying to bring some issues through the back door? That was something like that.
Door. Yes, through the back door. Yeah. And so Ruben Barrett was trying to say that the summit is supposed to be restricted to only DRC. Yeah. And then do you notice the way Mnangagwa responds there? Mnangagwa then says, well, it happens in life, these things happen. And he repeats it twice again.
Exactly. Until there was something from him to say Zimbabwe was not discussed. You and me, Simba, it's not
Mnangagwa. So it's not Mnangagwa who said Zimbabwe was not discussed. It's the journalist.
It's the journalist, yes.
Who imposed exactly on his own leader.
Yes, and one thing that I will tell you, me and you will know from a journalistic point of view, that was a stage-managed interview, and it was meant to actually send some messages that was not replica of what had been discussed in SADC, and actually, you could actually tell that this is stage managed, and the problem that they ran into by staging such things is that there are a lot of media outlets now. Simba, you are talking to some people who are in Luanda now. There are also other media organizations, and statements are coming out time and again, which will then expose them, and that is where our politics go wrong. from the onset. ZANU-PF had the monopoly of ZBC, but it has never realized that the media terrain has changed. In as much as they can hold on to ZBC, people can still have other outlets, and people can actually tell different stories about what they are saying and what they know.
Wow. And lastly, do you agree that what has happened right now, because SADC shut the stream, Mnangagwa can still manipulate communications right now? Yeah.
In fact, what is going to happen is that there would be some very big political canvassing behind. I think SADC want to play behind the people. You know, once things comes into the members of the public, sometimes things can actually be so bad and it can actually affect the outcome. But I will tell you, ZANU-PF is breathing fire at the moment. They will breathe fire. It might not happen tomorrow, next week, whatever. There would be a protracted discussion about the political impasse in Zimbabwe. One of the things that SADC in some way has actually been echoing is that the problems that AU Africa has is actually started by squeezing the democratic space. Look at all where the coups has taken place. Look at all where there is dictatorship, and dictatorship has bred instability. And right now, because of that particular dictatorship that ZANU-PF tried to exercise on the 23rd of August, today they have now lacked legitimacy. And instead of concentrating on building the economy, because they say they've won the election, they cannot do that. They are grappling. They are trying to fight their lives to get the legitimacy. And nothing has been done about the economy. The people of Zimbabwe are living in squalid conditions. A lot of people need some help. There's need to reconstruct the whole health system, the education system. Everything is collapsing, and you are finding people trying to fight for legitimacy because they never carried out that their politics right.
Wow. Yeah. Let's just hear from Wubit. What can you say here? We've got Dr. Nyashanu. Dr. Nyashanu is a veteran journalist. He's a researcher. He's also a veteran politician. He's been inside the democratic struggle. I remember him when he was spokesperson of the MDCT back during before and after the GNU. But yeah, he is speaking here, and he believes that Mr. Mnangagwa has failed, and Mr. Mnangagwa cannot and could not explain himself adequately. And what he communicated there with Ruben Barre was false. Wilbert, don't you think that the absence of a live stream by SADC makes it difficult for the population to obtain what really happened, and it means that Mr. Mnangagwa could easily escape? Do you think Mr. Mnangagwa could easily escape merely on the basis of a communication loophole here?
Well, I think whether they allowed their discussion to be streamed live or not, yes, it would have benefited the public to know how the discussion went. But even then, I think still SADC leaders could have still maintained a firm position. I've just been reading an article by somebody in Botswana who clearly is stating there that some of the SADC leaders were not happy with the discussion and the failure by SADC to take a firm hand on this issue of Zimbabwe. And absolutely rightly so too. And I mean, you know, the last speaker there was talking of the same thing, that Africa is one of the things that has undermined Africa is the lack of democratic transparency. You know, when you do not have democratic processes that people feel they are participating in, then what else do they have to do except going on the street or having coups? That is where SADC is going. And Zimbabwe has been a thorn in the side of SADC. And I honestly think that in this particular case. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so Wilbert, I want to try and roll down in 5 minutes, you know, and we can come back later on in the night. But I just want to ask both of you gents 2 questions here. There is one that has been printed there by Tendai Madondo, who says, with the way ZANU-PF was commenting before about the SUM report, especially Chris Muchangwa and George Charamba, I think SADC administration expected fireworks yesterday, only to find out that ZANU-PF talks more than they know. Do you agree, gents, to that? Number 2 is the way Trust, who is on the ground, who is at the premises right now, describes attitude that in Angola at present, and what he is saying is being typified by a dictator that is being likened to that country's former who looted a lot of money, such that even his own, just his daughter is touted, ended up being touted as the richest young woman in Africa. Now, do you see Angola playing a role, or Angola is just a barking dog of the elites, the SADC elites? Maybe we can start with Wilbert, and then Dr. Nyashanu can end with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in this particular case, there's no doubt that SADC is not homogeneous. I think that point we have got to accept. There are some SADC leaders who really wanted this issue of the impasse in Zimbabwe handled properly. And we've got to applaud SADC leaders like the Zambian president, because we are where we are today because he appointed a team that he told in no uncertain terms, I'm sure he would have made it very clear, you go and report what you see on the ground. You know, this idea that the tradition that SADC election observers would gloss over what is happening is totally unacceptable. Let's report on what we see on the ground. And that is exactly what they did. And the fact that now the SADC, the entire body, is now running away from that election report, we cannot blame it on President Hichilema. We can only blame it on the SADC body itself. And from the article I've just been referring to, there are definitely a number of other SADC countries who are disappointed that SADC is failing to act on its own principles and guidelines. You know, and an organization that cannot even uphold its own principles and guidelines, it's, you know, it's a joke. And this is the tragedy of SADC.
Yeah, Dr. Nyashanu. Yeah, something popped up while Wilbert was talking.
Yes.
From your recollection of what happened, and I think this is going to be extremely important. Maybe you can come valuable on this one as a contributor and someone who you've witnessed how SADC operates. I remember when you were an advocate, I mean, you were part of the advocacy that helped Morgan Tsvangirai win the 2008 elections back then. Tell me now.
Yeah. One of the things that people
people want to know, what is the next stage? Because right now, I've seen this comment. I'm sure you've seen these comments here popping out, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Mnangagwa'S presidency has been doubted. It's been practically nullified. Okay, and it's only maybe a matter of time, or matter of process, or matter of how SADC handles such situations, and the election of ZANU-PF and the like, right? ZANU-PF MPs. But people want to know, from your background of how SADC operates, please give us, from the wealth of your knowledge, what Zimbabweans should await now from hereafter.
One of the things people should know, how these organizations operate. SADC in its current form is not as powerful as what people would like them to be, because SADC holds no one in terms of the economy. What SADC can wield is legitimacy. It can help any government in Southern Africa to build legitimacy, which will lead to acceptance by the international community. And that is exactly what SADC has. So what SADC is now selling, and what it sells to ZANU-PF, would be, it's either we have this political impasse resolved, or else you will remain the same. ZANU-PF is looking for legitimacy, and I will tell you, there is already some movements behind. They will be trying to solve the political impasse. There is no way that Zimbabwe made its way to the agenda and then they just keep quiet. But one of the things that they would never do is what we would expect. This might take time, but what I know, ZANU-PF will never survive this legitimacy struggle. In fact, they've got to have this political impasse resolved with the opposition party for Zimbabwe to go on. It will mean that there will be no business in Zimbabwe. And any business that is taking place will actually be satisfying the very few people, not the development for the greater people of Zimbabwe. And what I know is happening behind now, I will tell you, I have not heard anything, but from my political conscience, political thinking, and understanding of how these bodies work, there is already some pressure on ZANU-PF to resolve this political impasse. It's not a good image, neither for SADC itself to be dining with dictators, to be dining with people who are taking power willy-nilly, and people who do not follow the standards of what they've set with some organization they belong to. All what we were hearing being floundered by ZANU-PF after Nevas Mumbai had delivered his report, that was all sideshow play by Muchangwa and Chinamasa. That was a sideshow play, and it's a replica of ZANU-PF that they can threaten anybody. They use the war of independence as one of their weapons, and they forget that for them to fight that war, we had our brothers and sisters, fathers, mothers, providing them with food for it to go. But they forget that, and they still talk about that. And that is a very bad precedent that even impact on the creation of democracy in Zimbabwe. And we are having all these things about there is no legitimacy. Yes, there is no legitimacy because you are putting up your own game of the rules of the game, and you are actually going against those rules. And then there will be no legitimacy. No one will respect you as a player. That is exactly what is happening. But I tell you, SADC is on it, in as much as people would say, SADC, yes, it has got its weaknesses. From a political point of view, it has got its weaknesses. SADC has no economic power which it can impose on its members. But it has got political power, and it can also accord legitimacy to governments. And that is what it wields. And everyone, before they can trade or they can actually have confidence in any government in Southern Africa, one of the things they will do is to engage with SADC and see how SADC rates the political terrain of that particular country. It will be not useful for Mr. Mnangagwa not to engage with the opposition. This is the truth. And this is why we are having people who are being beaten in Zimbabwe today, months after the election. It is because they are fighting for legitimacy. If they had won really, we should have seen them rolling out some economic plans. They are not doing that. They are trying to roll out plans to kill the opposition. You cannot kill an opposition that defeated you on the election, that is more legitimate than you. What it needs to do is to canvass for a global agreement and go forward. Then they can start talking about improving the economy. And these are practical.
Are you then of the mindset, Doctor, that Chamisa shouldn't even worry about the Chabangu recalls and everything? Chamisa has got the legitimacy, even if they strip him without any MPs or councillors. He still holds he has more legitimacy than any human being in Zimbabwe.
Exactly, precisely. Well, Simbayev said it the right way. Chamisa is not struggling for any recognition. Everyone across the world talks of Chamisa of having been robbed of the election. And ZANU-PF is there trying to defend itself, trying to destroy the structures of the opposition. Now, what is at play here is that ZANU-PF, if anyone is in ZANU-PF, what they need to be actually looking for, if they want to survive this political onslaught, they need to recognize that there are millions of people in Zimbabwe who voted for the opposition. There is need for a global agreement to make sure that this political impasse is actually finished. Otherwise, staying like this will be a tale of the Zimbabwean story being on a grave train to the graveyard.
Wow, this is quite telling, and I think we might need to be concluding shortly. We've got a lady who tuned in here. Madam, are you still here? Mvuzo Mahlambi. Mvuzo Mahlambi. Okay, and then last night there's a lady who just joined our call, and I'm having a lot of positive feedback from this lady, and I just don't know where she is. I didn't take note of her name. I'm getting a lot of feedback here. Wilbert, do you remember who that lady was?
No,
right. So ma'am, the lady who joined us last night. Yeah. So the lady who joined us last night, right on our broadcast, please do contact me on my number +4474268633301, so that maybe we can have another discussion, please, because I didn't get your name or number. Right. So the lady in the backstage here. Good afternoon to you. Can you hear me? Okay, Mvuzo Mahlambi, you're not talking, so we might have to end without your voice, unfortunately.
Okay, I think I'm online now.
Yes, you're back now. Thank you. Right. Yeah. Do you want to ask any question? We're about to shut in about 2.5 minutes. Ask any question or contribute, and if you are contributing, try and keep it short and sharp.
I do agree with the gentleman that was talking a few minutes ago. Regarding the status of SADC, this is a new development. Having a leader like HH in SADC, and he is not gonna be beaten up by the political thugs in the region. Unfortunately, those.
Oh, by the way, while you're speaking, Mr. Trustendlove, who is on the ground, has just joined us. So I think we might lengthen we might have an extra 5 minutes. Please continue.
Oh, great. Yes. So in the SADC, there's a group of politicians or political organizations, parties that describe themselves as freedom fighters or something like that. Liberation movements. Yes, they term themselves liberation movements. They are all in ZANU-PF's pockets. Mnangagwa uses the stolen money to buy people, to be on his corner, just like the South African ANC leaders. They can't contain themselves. You have seen what Fikile Mbalula has said and done. And the ANC, even before Ramaphosa, Mbeki was thick as thieves with ZANU-PF. And they have declared that they do not want a change of government in Zimbabwe. South Africans saying that. The ANC saying that. And in the SADC, South Africa carries a heavy weight. I don't even know why people think they have that much weight or why they give them that significance. Nothing happens in SADC without South Africa's support. But I'm encouraged by the strength of HH in Zambia. We need more of those people. I don't know if it is possible that we extend in that direction. So you guys probably see more than most of us would see. You might as well give us a way forward.
I think that's very interesting noting which you have just made. Definitely, I think SADC, if you look back, except only in 2008 when there was a massive killing of people in Zimbabwe, that's when they actually put pressure on ZANU-PF. It never used to be like that. SADC didn't have people who would actually stand up, except Kama. Kama used to be like HH during the 2008. You remember Simba? Kama in
yes, I do. Sorry, Doc. My device is playing up a bit, and I was just going to ask you if we are able to spend the next minutes with Mr. Ndlovu in yellow, in an orange jacket. There, he is the man who is on the ground in Luanda. Maybe we can ask him questions and we can interact with him. Mr. Ndlovu, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you, Simba? How are you? And the crew.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So, gents and ladies, let's interact with Mr. Ndlovu. He's in Rwanda right now. Let's him and engage with him. He is saying that he hears from a lot of people in Angola. They are identifying what they have that country's resource to the level that even he's the richest in Africa. So please,
I'm sorry, I'm losing you. Network is a great challenge in this city.
No, I think actually it's not only you. We also were missing him. I think what he was trying to find out from you is what is the reaction of people in Rwanda regarding this.
I didn't get well, through the people like the civil society and other people like other analysts and the, political analysts and the people generally, they are saying Emerson Mnangagwa, they liken him with their former president. The former president of Angola, Dos Santos, is well known for having who is also the SADC president, SADC chairperson, I mean. He is actually trying to undo what Dos Santos did. So they're comparing that Emerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe with Dos Santos, which is not reflecting very well for Mr. Mnangagwa, of course, because Mr. Dos Santos have a very bad history in this country, and many people, when they hear him being likened with Mr. Dos Santos, they take him as an evil man. somebody who do not care about his people, do not care about his citizens, and of course, other people, the civil society is something also galvanizing solidarity in support of Zimbabwe. But the other thing is that Angola is a Portuguese-speaking nation, and it's very difficult to catch up with some of the analysis on television or in the media because it's written in Portuguese. I'm English speaking, so it's very difficult, and I don't hardly have an interpreter. So it's very difficult to catch up and understand some of the analysis taking place. But in short, what I can say is that for SADC, the SIOM Observer Mission report regarding the elections in Zimbabwe was discussed, and according to the knowledge, I mean the language which SADC communique uses in the public is that it was noted, but the people who have access information, they say that it was adopted. Actually, they accepted the SADC SIOM report as the position of the SADC. So all the member states, except a few, of course, but majority were saying ignorance, like irregularities are everywhere in all elections. Some they could even quote the American elections, but the overarching argument is that there have never been elections which were condemned by all international institutes in that proportion. You know, you would remember that we have SADC observers, we have independent observers, we had Carter Foundation observers, we got AU, we got European Commonwealth. I mean, a whole lot of all the observers condemned these elections as having been gone through a flawed process and have run short of the minimum standards of SADC guidelines, and he also violated the constitution of the country itself, also violated the electoral law of the country. So that is the situation. And of course, lastly, people in Angola, they do not, the general populace do not show much interest in Zimbabwean politics. In fact, they are quite ignorant from what type of observed, but those who are conscious of the politics in the region.
Yeah, we can't hear you anymore.
Oh, I just said thank you.
Okay. Well, my comment to that one will be that the people in Angola are making actually a big mistake. Because
the question.
What they have to realize here, my comment is that I think the people in Angola are making a big mistake, because if we allow Zimbabwe to get away with a rigged election, this is not going to stop in Zimbabwe only. Other people will notice it, and they would want to do the same thing to stay in power. Doesn't matter how good the individual may be. Once they've been in power, the temptation to stay on in power is such that if they should find shortcuts to making sure that they stay in power, they'll use those shortcuts. And in this particular case, this is why it is imperative for all the SADC citizens to really fight this issue. Because by it being swept under the carpet, and I believe that at the present moment, after the discussion yesterday, I think most SADC countries, SADC leaders would want the report to be forgotten. And particularly South Africa wants the report to be forgotten. And this is, I believe, what is likely to, going to happen.
I wouldn't think so, Wilbert. One of the things that happened with such an organization, there is a lot of politics that is played. And one of the things that you need to bear in mind is that there is... Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, yes. And so I'm saying that one of the things that needs to be actually understood is that when such big organizations do operate, they also want to make sure that what they discuss is not also going to be jeopardized by some statements that may come out of the public. But I will tell you, there is no way they will just sweep the Zimbabwean issue under the carpet. As we are talking now, Zimbabwe is burning. It is burning. There is no economic activity taking place. And it has actually reconfirmed that the Zimbabwe government has failed in its deliverance for a democratic space. And that is one of the things that has affected the Zimbabwean economy. Hence, it has put pressure on its neighbors. And they are going to follow up this, but the speed at which they are going to follow it up obviously will be dictated by the political terrain in Southern Africa and the power that SADC wields. I have told you earlier on that SADC does not have any economic power to impose on its members. However, it has got the political power. And none of the governments in Southern Africa would want to go without legitimacy. And this is why ZANU-PF is picking and putting their heads in the sand. They want to be recognized, and they know they are not. And there will be no business. That is the big thing about political recognition. There is no business that will take place. All what you have promised will come to none, because no one would want to trade with you, because you do not work representing the people you purport to be representing. So this is what ZANU-PF is grappling with, and they've got to make sure that this political impasse is adequately discussed with the opposition. That's how it stands. They may want to refuse.
I would like to agree with you, but I think we should not underestimate the influence of South Africa in SADC. And at the present moment, ANC government is desperately trying to hang on to power. And we should not forget that ANC made a party resolution in November last year that they will not allow regime change in Zimbabwe. And it was purely for their own political gain. South Africa is in an economic mess. There cannot be any denying that. And ANC's agenda is to try to promote this idea that the whole SADC region leaders, those with liberation history, are under attack.
But
why they've got to hang on to power. And in this particular case, making sure that there's no regime change in Zimbabwe is part and parcel of that. And I think let's not his power in this one.
That is very true, but let's not think that is what they think. Let's talk about the action that they shown up. Yesterday, they actually voted to say that there was no free and fair election in Zimbabwe. They did not object to the SADC report. So which means that if ever they were promising ZANU-PF heaven on earth, they threw them under the bus. And that is how politics work. In as much as they may need the support of South Africa, South Africa will stand by the regional body. The ANC will also lose credibility. if it starts also behaving like ZANU-PF.
Let me just throw in my thoughts here, Wilbert and the others. You know, what is what should be of a bigger concern to Zimbabweans is why did ED lie? Because it is clear, it is obvious that that discussion that he had at the airport, it was stage managed. It was something that was meant to convey a certain message that is not true, which is consistent with what ZANU-PF does. They create narratives. So the narrative that is out there because of what Mnangagwa said at the airport to Ruben Barwe, and also being aided by Ruben Barwe, that was a stage managed interview. You can even see the way Ruben Barwe was trying to instigate Emmerson Mnangagwa to say exactly what he wanted or what they wanted the people to hear. That the only thing that was discussed at that meeting was that the DRC issue, and that's what everyone else is talking about. But we now know that that is a lie. It's not true.
Exactly.
Zimbabwe was really discussed, and not only that, the other evidence that Emmerson Mnangagwa lied is comes from his own minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He actually admitted, if you listen to that audio again, if we were to play it, that Zimbabwe was on the agenda on this summit. It's there. So how can an organization like SADC put something firmly on the agenda and then just decide to skip it or not discuss it? So
exactly, that is what I was saying. I said he lied, and that was pure lies. And it's even confirmed in the Sunday Mail. The Sunday Mail is saying that nothing was discussed, and it's on public domain, and this is being read by the citizens. And it is not well, and people should actually demand that leaders do speak the truth about the nation. This is not a private entity from Mnangagwa. Zimbabwe is a republic which encompasses a diverse population. And lying is a big thing. I go along with you. I have said this earlier on to Simba that that was a pure lie. And I agree with you that was also stage managed to try and satisfy their desires. But I tell you, ZANU-PF is burning. ZANU-PF is burning to get legitimacy. And to get that legitimacy, they need to speak to the opposition. There would be no development. Just imagine, months after election, still now no plan has been put in place about the economy. People are languishing in poverty. People are wallowing in poverty. And you are still trying to chase the opposition. And this is something that should actually tell the people of Zimbabwe that we are actually living under misgovernance. And we have got a lot of rights that we need to demand to the government of ZANU-PF, which they are not actually, from the stolen election to how they are treating the people of Zimbabwe today.
Yes, I do agree with you on many of those spots. Another thing that, as for the lying, the misgovernance, that's the DNA of ZANU-PF. That's what describes ZANU-PF. They will use anything at their disposal to get rid of anyone that is trying to subdue them and their plans. First of all, this is not new. What ZANU-PF has done to Triple C, it's not new. They always cannot coexist with an opposition party. They've never wanted to operate in a multi-party democracy from square one. They prepared before independence to crush ZAPU. They came up with all those false stories And in the end, they got away with it. They even used tribalism. And I'm a Zimbabwean. I'm from the Midlands. I come from a multi-tribal society. We speak each other's languages. Even our schools, students used to choose which language they want to learn. That doesn't happen in most parts of Zimbabwe. So when they then got in, they used tribalism, and in no time, ZAPU didn't exist. Why did they do that? I always say this is the reason why they didn't want ZAPU. I hear them now telling the whole world that they fought for liberation. Nobody can move them from that because they fought for it. They couldn't say that to ZAPU. They couldn't, because ZAPU was the initial party where everyone was. And 3 years later, they broke away to form ZAPU. In the end, they didn't even like Herbert Chitepo. They assassinate him, and the Zambian president stood firm. He promised to carry out an investigation, and whoever was found to be liable would have been tried and according to the laws of the country. That's when ZANU-PF runs away from Zambia. They knew what they did. And unfortunately, one of my favorite people in ZANU-PF, that was Tongo Gara, he's also mentioned to have been involved. When Stole takes over, their tribal issues go on. They didn't like him either. In the end, when they split, I think the one was given a tribal name. Was it Zanu Mwenje or Zanu Ndonga, whatever it is? And then they went forward with, that's when ZANU-PF starts now. But today, ZANU-PF doesn't talk of those things because they want to fool people to make it look like they are the ones who started the liberation war. That's not true. As Zimbabweans, we live under a lie, a cloud of lies by ZANU-PF. That's what they're taking us through right now. When MDC came up, what did they do to MDC? What happened to Trangirai? The same thing has happened to Nelson Chamisa. And Zimbabweans take it within their stride. They believe, oh, he was foolish, he didn't do this. That's not true. He wasn't foolish. The system in Zimbabwe is rotten. Zimbabweans need to stand up and have their voice heard. Even if you support ZANU-PF, you see that what they're doing is not right. Why can't you talk against it? Why can't you dissuade them from doing that? I think there's something that Zimbabweans have to change, or else we will always have politicians of this caliber. This is what we should not agree to. Over to you guys.
Well, thank you very much. You know what? I want to try and folks, and to roll down. I can see we've got a bit of a crowd, but I'm hoping that maybe we could end in 10 minutes time and we can start in the night. But as we end, is it possible for us to focus on what Yuda has thrown there? Mnangagwa is gone. Mnangagwa ayinda. Muruguramba ere kuti Mnangagwa ayinda. He becomes the first ever Zimbabwean president, okay, since Rhodesia, to conduct an inauguration, to get inaugurated, and be isolated by the entire African continent. And that was on the 5th of September. The entire African continent, save for 3 friends. And he gets condemned by even the small regional body SADC. He tries to fight the report, the SADC report, continues his spirited propaganda arsenal and attacks here, using all sorts of personalities, including journalists and various state parties. And yesterday, in Luanda, at the SADC Extraordinary Summit, he is further humiliated. I mean, he's practically stripped, because the very same report that he was trying to fight has been endorsed by SADC. It has been incorporated as an official SADC document, an investigation, which is a total 43 pages of condemnation of his own electoral crossover claim to the right to represent the Zimbabwean people. Is it wrong, gents, to say Mnangagwa?
Well, I would say he was gone already. In fact, he is operating in absentia because all what we have said, December, from the onset of that whole shambolic election, it actually defined that ZANU-PF had no strong ground in terms of it forming a government. And what has now happened is that officially, even his friends, South Africa, and whoever congratulated him during the shambolic election, they even threw him under the bus legally yesterday. So what it is that ZANU-PF has nobody to look at for any reprieve. All what they will get are lip services from their friends. But their friends, they would know that if they are to represent the organization like SADC, they've got to stand with the truth because they are accountable to their electorate back home. And ZANU-PF knows it's accountable to its electorate and its electorate in terms of their manifesto. ZANU-PF, the electorate of Zimbabwe, does not feature and is not part of their important or pertinent issue that they consider. And what we are seeing now is ZANU-PF which are grappling for political legitimacy. Without political legitimacy, you cannot operate a viable economy. And this is why ZANU-PF is trying to fight the CCC. If they thought that they had won and they had political legitimacy, they should be rolling out some economic plans, but they cannot do that. This shows that they are gone. They were already gone on the day that they administered the shambolic election through ZEC. So ZANU-PF, I don't see them surviving politically, one in Africa and at international level, if they do not engage the opposition to make sure that this political impasse is resolved. Over to you guys.
Right. So Simba, I would say yes, and I would say no, because Zimbabweans still have to play their part. We still have to action what happened yesterday. And this is what should happen in the next 24 hours or so. We need on the ground, everywhere else, including in Botswana, where the SADC headquarters is, we need pressure from there. We need people on the ground to do whatever they can to show that they are not happy with what happened in Zimbabwe with the sham elections on the 23rd of August. Because everywhere where ZANU-PF is going, including yesterday in Rwanda, ZANU-PF is carrying a narrative, telling a narrative to the other leaders that Zimbabweans have moved on from the 23rd election, which means they've accepted that, yes, there were mistakes during the elections, but they've accepted the result and they've moved on. And that's the reason why you are seeing that there's peace in the country. There's nothing wrong that is going on. People are not protesting, which means they are okay. Because we know what is happening. We know the people that are being abducted. We know the nitty-gritties that are happening. But I'm telling you, someone who is in Rwanda, someone who is in America, someone who is somewhere in another country, who is not in sync with what is happening in Zimbabwe, will not know that the people are not happy. So we have to let the international community, the world, the region, and everyone else, we have to make them know that we are not happy. So we have to do what we need to do. We have to play our part. We cannot rely on SADC, to do everything for us. There is supposed to be a by-election. That by-election must not take place. That by-election must be prohibited. And it can only be prohibited by us. And that will be sending a message to everyone else, including to Emmerson Mnangagwa. So we need to reject that by-election. We need to stop it. And the only way we can stop it is by action on the ground and everywhere else in the world. Zimbabweans need to rise. Zimbabweans need to complement what SADC is doing. On its own, SADC is not going to free Zimbabwe. It can only free Zimbabwe with the help of Zimbabweans.
Wow. Thank you very much, Chief. Who is next? Wilbert? Maybe I think we're going to close with Wilbert, right? Yeah. I'm not sure if our lady is still here.
My opinion is that to say ED is gone is, I think it's premature, to say the least, because SADC, I believe that SADC, if they really wanted to follow this up, would have said in their communique, the issue of Zimbabwe elections was discussed, and this is what is going to happen next, i.e., we are going to follow it up, or the Secretariat has been instructed to do A, B, C, D. And in this particular case, just to say it has been noted, could well mean that they've just kicked it into the long grass. I believe that we should not underestimate South Africa's influence and South Africa's determination to make sure that there's no regime change in Zimbabwe. We should not forget that even a senior member of ANC, the Secretary General, is on record calling Nelson Chamisa a puppet. When somebody uses that kind of language on somebody who could potentially be the leader of another country, you can tell the animosity is one where they're absolutely determined that there's not going to be regime change. I believe what is happening here is, yes, South Africa may not have failed to stop the preliminary report becoming the final report, and the final report being discussed at SADC, but they are determined to make sure that it doesn't go any further. And given South Africa's position in SADC, I think they will have their wish. And it is most unfortunate for Zimbabweans, because I saw this personally as one opportunity we were going to have to finally address the problems of the political reforms necessary to create the environment where we can have free, fair, and credible elections. Even if they should try to window dress and come up with some, or you must have some political arrangement in Zimbabwe. Any political arrangement between ZANU-PF and CCC that does not guarantee political reforms is just window dressing. It will not change anything. We'll still be where we are. In other words, 2028 comes along, we will still have flawed elections. This carry on will just continue. As for the economy being in a mess, the economy has been in a mess for a long time. And this will just carry on. And I totally agree that Mnangagwa at the present moment is focused on, first of all, to win the elections. And now that he has rigged the elections, to try to make sure that this is swept under the carpet as quickly as possible. And I think with South Africa's help, he may just get away with it. And I would like to be proven wrong. Many people have said here that SADC is following this up and so forth. I honestly don't see SADC really playing an active role. Some of the countries in SADC have already expressed their disappointment with the way the issue is being handled. Some of them did not attend yesterday's meeting. Some of the presidents of other countries like Botswana and so forth, they did not attend that meeting. And from the articles on the internet, on the social media, it's because they are disappointed with the way SADC is handling this. And I think that is a reality that they themselves realized and accept. They cannot, because SADC is not is one of those consensus organization where you have to go with the majority. And I think about 10 countries attended the SADC meeting. And in this particular case, to think we could do anything where South Africa is strongly against it, I think is being unrealistic. South Africa has the muscle in SADC.
We are left with 2 minutes. Dr. Shani, you wanted to interject?
Yes, I wanted to say that, are you saying which country was not represented? I understand that some countries were represented by foreign ministers or others.
Yeah, I think some of them were represented by foreign ministers and some other diplomats or something. It's just the same as the inauguration. Most of the other SADC countries did not attend the inauguration in protest at the process itself.
But the important issue is the adoption of that report, which talked about the Zimbabwean issue. Yes, of course, we might want things to be speeded up, but we should also consider the political power that is wielded by SADC. SADC only wields political power. It is not like EU, which can actually have economic power, which it can impose against its member. Now, the SADC, I presume SADC is actually going to act on this, and it's a pressing issue, and it's not good for the region. And the Zimbabwean issue, as we can see it, is not good for the region, it's not good for its neighbors, and it's not even good for the whole of SADC. And the best thing for them to do is to address that issue. But the way they will address it, they would have to approach it diplomatically as well, as they don't want it to spill into willy-nilly arguments that will be also, emanating from the streets. But I think everyone knows that ZANU-PF is breathing fire. They are fighting for their political life in terms of recognition, and that is something that is of a benefit to the opposition and those people who are looking for independence in Zimbabwe. ZANU-PF will never drive that country without resolving the political impasse first. And that is very clear.
Well, here we are. Gents and ladies, I think we've come to the end of our session tonight, this afternoon. We're going to come back later on at 8 p.m. British time. If you're around, please do connect. And we continue on this discussion. We have got someone who's on the ground. Mr. Ndlovu is on the ground, literally at the SADC premises, the center where Mr. Mnangagwa, he's literally at the staircase. He tells me that he's going to camp at the SADC summit premises until Monday, and presumably to protect our results. The SADC results will be stolen.
That's a good one.
So, our viewers, brothers and listeners, here we are. And how do you see this, Zimbabweans? Mr. Shepard, you'd hear one of our forensic scientists is telling us Mnangagwa is gone. Ainda, achadzoki uyu. Kwaenda akuchadzokiki. Ndosaka nezoranga kuwanda nekamera yaRuben Barwe. Akupiwa ma speech notes ekuti ataure, akupiwa mashoko na Ruben Barwe. Reporter turns into the one who is being interviewed. Right, so quickly, our viewers and listeners, here we are. We're going to end. We'll come back tonight and do connect with us. Just a brief, so that those who came late, you can watch what is going on the ground as we end. Our guests, you might want to exit so that you don't stay too long. Here we go.
President Hichilema also made comments on political situations in Zimbabwe and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Zimbabwe elections. My answer, very simple answer to that, yes, that item is on the agenda. It was on the agenda for the Monday summit. We didn't conclude, we didn't reach that item. This Saturday, that item is going to be discussed in Angola.
Comrade President, How did it go?
Excellent. Excellent. With very successful SADC summit. Yes.
Any of those pretenders who might have wanted to smuggle issues over here, did they get?
No, these things happen in society. Not everybody is a priest. So you find these things happening, but we are so alert that we're going to deal with things that are relevant to the summit, which was called. This is extraordinary, which means there was a particular subject we had to discuss.
Only DRC issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Mr. Ndlovu, are these the stairs that the ZANU-PF leader Emerson Mnangagwa was descending when he was talking with his journalist Ruben Barwe and convincing himself that there was no discussion at all about the Zimbabwe elections? Can you please explain?
Look, I'm actually here at this venue where such summit took place. If you look at these stairs, that's where these leadership presidents, state presidents were climbing up to the venue, going inside there. So I'm so shocked and surprised that Mr. Mnangagwa and his other counterparts are playing this whole thing down. But the fact of the matter is that, one, the adoption of the SADC report on Zimbabwean elections was noted. It was taken, which simply means that when they say they are noting, it's a diplomatic term that means that they have endorsed that report. And that report was so damning, that report made it very clear that elections were flawed, processes were flawed, elections were not free, fair, and credible. And number two, it also stated that these elections should be nullified in clear terms. It should be nullified. So we are here to report and to witness the historic agreement or historic resolution by the SADC summit. You know, there are commentators along the side here who are making it very clear that makes the Emerson Mnangagwa, they liken him to the former president of Angola, Mr. Dos Santos. You know, to say he was able to amass riches for himself through ill-gotten riches, and just like him. And this is what Mr. Lawrence, the current president of Angola, is trying to undo here in Angola. So yes, some of the things that are being said are not very specific. But of course, I want to also quickly add that we do not know exactly what is the way forward. There is only speculation that South Africa will handle the negotiation, the dialogue, but we are not very sure. But what we are sure of is that that report was clearly adopted. So if it was adopted, it was noted, it means that they agree with the contents of that report, which was genuinely, which made it very clear that elections were not free and fair. So the point I'm trying to make is that we got two issues here. There's an issue of noting the report, right? Which is very clear. But the second issue, of course, is about the way forward. Everyone is speculating. We don't know if the way forward is that what exactly has transpired. We're trying to get through some people who are close to the officials of government, the government officials who are very close to the president, with the chairperson of SADC summit here. So we are going to get the truth as time goes on, but people must understand that there is a lot of diplomatic efforts being played around this issue. You know, the fact remains that this SADC report found its way into the SADC summit and it was noted. And that noting, in our understanding and the information that we have, is that it means it was agreed that elections were not free and and fair and credible. And it also means that the ZEC announcement, election announcement results was nullified. It was nullified because everything came through the flawed process. The presidency also, by extension, is nullified. But who has the boldness to say that in the public? We don't know. But I want also to note that, yes, the way forward is there. The way forward is just that we are not sure how concrete the way forward is. But SADC is not happy, was not happy, and these irregularities were beyond measure, were not normal irregularities that we always find or always see in other elections reports in other countries. These were above or beyond the standard guidelines and the elections constitutional, it violated the constitution of Zimbabwe, it violated even our own electoral act led by our Chigumba there. So the fact of the matter is that things did not go well for Mr. Emmerson Mnangagwa.
This is Zimai Media, broadcasting all round the world, on the spot, on the dot. This is Zimai Media, broadcasting all round the world, on the spot, on the dot.